guys, it's Kelly here, and welcome back to part 2 of the My Favorite Things Sittin' Pretty. So if you missed part 1, we created the entire background, which is what you saw at the beginning. I will link that just in case you missed it. But now we are going to move on to stamping, die cutting, all of the parts that are going to go in our scene. Why did I split them into 2 videos? I split them into 2 videos because it takes a long time. Some cards just take a long time. And this one in particular did, because I was creating the entire background and then creating all these cute little guys here to go into my background. So we're just going to get right into the copic coloring. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit, just like we normally do in between story time. But so I split them up into 2 because it does take a long time, but also because if you are a person who is maybe getting into one layer scene making, you seem to find that you like making cards like that, or that's kind of your niche, this part won't appeal to you, but the building of the background will. And they were both long enough to surely be videos on their own. They're about 20 minutes a piece or 18 minutes a piece. So I just thought that it would be easier to split them into 2 pieces. So if you are new to my channel or you haven't watched before, with my copic coloring, I like to start lightest to darkest and then darkest to lightest. For me, I am heavy-handed with my dark markers. So I start with my lightest. That way I can leave quite a bit of highlight instead of putting down my darkest color and feeling like the highlight just gets eaten up by all the colors I'm putting down. So you can see here we're doing some skin tone. This is kind of like my go-to skin tone. I didn't really think anything about it, just because I had so much coloring to do. I just grabbed my normal go-to and then kind of went from there. I did try to use complementary colors to what I had going on in the background, so that is something that you will want to pay attention to when you're creating your scenes. Her jeans will be the same color as the house. Purple is on the color wheel, like if you're doing different color schemes, works very well with blue and red, so purple was a pretty easy choice. And then the green obviously is already there in the grass. I did add in some blue greens. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get there. Just to kind of break up the yellow green I had going on. And no regrets there. I think that it works pretty well. And then the bird stayed red, just like the door and some of the flower pots, so that they all kind of tied in together. So, anywho, back to story time. And I believe we left off where I was learning that I could have my own pod with a recliner and a blankie. So, yeah, so that was totally news to me, because the first time around I did not have that. And so, I have been intermittently reading this book. Normally, if I'm reading, like, I devour them. Like, if I'm reading all, like, constantly. It's very rare for me to have a book I kind of, like, go back and forth with. And that seems to be the way that this one's kind of going. Which is okay. I mean, it means I have a book to take with me to doctor's appointments, I guess. But so they did my fasting blood sugar, told you this, and then they did, they gave me the drink, the orange drink, and then I went to hang out for an hour. So after the first hour, I realized why they offered you a blankie. It was so cold in there, like, and I prepared because I know that I'm a freeze baby. So, like, I even prepared with, like, an extra heavy sweater, and I was still just super cold. So the first lady, every single time they took my blood, I had a different nurse, and every single one of those nurses was lovely. But I also had to explain to them, like I said before, about my fear of needles. So every time I had to go through the spiel about, don't show me the needle because I'll panic. And they were all really wonderful about it. So I go in, they take my blood, and then I ask her, I was like, listen, I'm not trying to be a princess here or anything, but one of the other nurses had mentioned maybe I could get a blanket. Do you think that that's possible? And she was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I go back to my little pod, and she brings me not only a blanket, but she brings me a warm blanket. Aren't warm blankets like the best thing ever? Like, it was just so nice of her. So now I'm in my recliner with my warm blanket and my book, and I'm intermittently napping because I'm exhausted all the time. I'm just so tired all the time. And so then she tells me, if you hear the alarm go off and nobody comes to get you, just come back here. And I'm like, okay. So they're apparently counting on me to be conscious, which I am not confident in my ability to do so. But fortunately, I was every single time I did hear the alarm, probably because of the times that I was like kind of dozing off. I wasn't, I'm not in a place where I'm going to be like sound asleep. I'm in the middle of the hospital with all the, noises and stuff going on. But anyway, so I go back for my second one, go through my whole needle spiel. She takes my blood again. And then I asked her, do you know when the results would be in? And she said, well, if you have the online thing, they're probably posting as we're taking them, which is fascinating. Like, I do have the online, like their app, but it never even occurred to me to check there, just because it's not something that I'm used to doing. So that was like wicked cool. So I did end up setting it up and logging in so that I could see kind of my test results as they posted. Back to the card for 1 second. So here, I've colored her shirt purple. I told you I felt like purple worked with the color scheme, and I have no regrets about it. No regrets. And then for the potted plant, I thought that it would be a little bit fun to do a combination of the purple with a blue-green. That sounds a little weird, but bear with me. I have just done kind of the... What's the word I want? Oh, I'm so bad with plants. What is the word? Like the core, the spine? The spine? Is that what I want? Y'all know what I'm saying. It's the middle. It's the middle of the pokey plants. And I colored them purple, and then I'm going to go over them with a blue-green, and you're going to see that even though it seems like that shouldn't work, it does work, and it gives them a little bit more dimension. So anywho's, so I go on there, and like my fasting blood sugar was like 88, and they have my first one posted, which was within the normal range, but it was like on the high side. I think it was like 155 is what it ended up being, and the normal range was I think it topped out at like 160 or something. So I'm trying to think what the normal range was. What was it? Okay, so for I apologize. The first one, my numbers were 169, and normal was between 120 and 180. Okay, so that's all I know at this point. After I hang out, whatever, read my book, do the next hour. In between my second and third hour, I knew I had not eaten because I had fasted, like I was supposed to. And so I was like, there is a Subway right around the corner inside the hospital. I'm going to go online. I'm going to order my Subway. Now, when I did my 1 hour one, the woman there told me, don't eat anything super sugary. It'll make you really sleepy. You want something that was like high in protein. Also, when you're pregnant, you can't eat lunch meat because of the listeria. It's bacteria that grows on lunch meat and blue cheese and other things. But like, anyway, you can't eat it. All these rules, so many rules. And so I get a chicken bacon ranch because everything in there has to be, like, all the meats have to be cooked. So I pre-order it. I go in for my third blood draw. By this time, my next number have posted, And you're supposed to be between 70 and 155, and I was 150. So I was still like a little bit on the high side. So I was starting to get a little bit nervous because I had two numbers within the normal range. But they say if you have two abnormal numbers, then, you have gestational diabetes. So I was like, oof, like I hope my next one is not, super high. So I go in, she takes my blood, I leave there, I go right around the corner. My Subway is chilling right on the shelf. I grab that. Now mind you, I didn't purchase anything super sugary because they told me it would make me sleepy, and I'm already sleepy all the time. So I grab that, use the sanitary wipes that I have in my car so that I can eat half of the wrap on the way home. This is my game plan. And it's about 1:30, so Eric is still home, but Peanut has begged and pleaded to go to his grandmother's. So he is at Nana's house. This is no big shock. My mom, pretty much, she will deny this, lets him do pretty much whatever he wants. Though she insists that he doesn't behave poorly. I don't necessarily know that that's true. I think she just has a higher tolerance for bad behavior because he's a grandbaby. But anyway, so I eat half of my wrap, and then I'm on my way home. And I'm maybe about 5 minutes from home, and I just feel like trash. Like, I just feel terrible. Like, I feel like something is not right. So I call Eric, and I was like, listen, I'm about 5 minutes from home. I'm just going to talk to you on the phone until I get home because I just don't feel good. And he was like, pull your car over. I will come get you. And I was like, no, I don't think it's that bad. But I just don't feel good. So we ended up talking the whole way home. And of course, anytime you're just trying to get home, like all you want to do is make it home. There's like slow drivers and backed up traffic. And so finally, like I'm on the phone with him, and I was like, okay, I'm turning onto our street. Like, I'll see you in a minute. So I get home. He meets me in the driveway. I'm super shaky and like trying to gather my purse and things, like backpack with where I had my book and my stuff to take it into the house. And like we get into the house and he's like, drink this orange juice. And I was like, no, like I just had this really sugary drink. And the lady told me that if I drank anything that had a bunch of sugars in it, that would make me really sleepy. And I don't think I'm supposed to drink that. And he was like, listen, drink the orange juice. Now, a little bit of backstory. Both of Eric's parents are diabetic, and his mom has been diabetic pretty much his entire life. So he is a little bit more familiar with it than like your run-of-the-mill. Because even though I do the emergency medical dispatch and I have a general understanding of the way that it works, like I've never personally dealt with it in my family. My dad does have diabetes, but it's not controlled with insulin. It's controlled with pills, and quite honestly, he doesn't really pay any attention to it, which is endlessly frustrating. So anywho, but his mom, obviously he has much more experience with it due to her health issues, and he was like, babe, drink the orange juice. And I was like, okay, whatever. So, like, I drink the orange juice. I tell him I'm going upstairs to take a nap while Peanut is at Nana's and he's going to work. So I go upstairs and I probably sleep for like an hour and a half. I wake up. I feel a ton better. So I just figured it was a combination of like not eating and not getting a lot of sleep and all of that jazz. Back to the card. So after I colored those little pots red, and I colored them with the same colors of the door, you saw me go back over them with a YR18. And the reason I did that is because all of the shading and everything was there and was great with the red, but I wanted them to look a little bit more terracotta. So I just swiped over a red on top to kind of like glaze it or tone it. It didn't take away from any of the shading, and it did add that little bit of orange. So don't be afraid to do that. If you don't have the exact color that you want, try playing around with laying colors on top of each other and seeing, just what you can kind of make on your own. So here, like what I just did was like a bunch of little dots. I thought it would look super cute if she looked like she was feeding the birds that while she was sitting on the porch. And so the dots are like the little bird foods. I'm outlining all of them before I die cut them out because it's just easier to not have to chase around the little die cuts. And then we're going to start building the card. So anyway, I wake up, I feel a ton better. And there, my go pick up Peanut, he has swim. I take him to swim. I come back home, and after I get home, now this is, mind you, 1:30, 2:30, 2:30, 3:30, like 4 hours after my test. My doctor calls. Now, I did not go back. I did not go back into my chart thing because they took my blood and then I pretty much came home and went to sleep. So after that, I was just like momming and it didn't even occur to me to like check my numbers. So my doctor calls and leaves me a message. And she was like, hey, you passed your gestational diabetes test. Yay. So glad we did. But like, you really bottom out on that last one. Like, you know, you should make sure that you eat some like complex carbohydrates or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now this is like 4 hours late, 4 hours later. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's why I'm like, I guess like my sugar was low and that's why I felt so trashy. So I pulled up, the My Chart thing just to look at it. And you're supposed to be between 72 and 140. I totally bottomed out at 42. Like, that is why I felt so trashed. And I said something to Eric about it, and he was like, the reason I made you drink the orange juice is because, like, your breath smelled fruity, which is a sure sign of, like, low blood sugar. So I don't know how you go from 150 to 42, but I did. And apparently I don't have gestational diabetes, which I'm super grateful for because that's just another layer of things to have to deal with. So, yeah, that's my gestational diabetes testing story. For the card here, you can see that I did glue some of them down flat. And then there's other ones that I kind of popped up just for a little bit of added dimension. 2 of the flowers, the birds, or the pots, I guess I should say. They're not really flowers. Well, that tulip is. But anyway, just to kind of like a little extra something going on there. And then I was having a hard time reading my sentiment, and I didn't really like the way that it was kind of blending in. So in order to make it stand out a little bit more, I decided to go back in with my marker, my pen here, and I just gave it like a little bit of a drop shadow. So everything that was kind of like to the left and to the bottom, I just drew a black line underneath, and it helped it kind of pop a little bit more. So that's a trick that you can use too. So thank you guys so much for joining me for the last 2 installments. I really appreciate it. I hope that you learned something, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.